time after our long, layoff. She had her house, I had mine, and that was how we lived. The commute wasn't a big problem. It turned out that we'd been living just 70 miles apart for all those in-between years. We weren't together all the time, and that was okay. We didn't need to be. When we were, it was like being with a good friend that you just happened to sleep with. We worked at the relationship in a way that couples just starting out don't need to do, because they have that wind beneath their wings. Older couples, especially those with a terrible darkness in their past that they need to avoid, have to flap. That's what we did. Donna took early retirement, and in 2010, we became a one-house couple, mine in Newburyport. It was her decision. At first, I thought it was because she wanted more together time, and I was right about that, just not why she felt more together time had become necessary. We spent a week getting her settled. Then she asked me one sunshiny October Saturday if I'd walk with her by the rock wall that divides my property from the Merrimack River. We held hands and kicked through the leaves, listening to the crackle and smelling that sweet cinnamon odor they get before they go limp and start to decay. It was a beautiful afternoon with big fat clouds sailing across a blue sky. I said it looked like she had lost weight. She said that was true. She said it was because she had cancer. I was afraid that thinking about the buzzards tearing into Allie would keep me awake. So I went poking through Greg's double-sized medicine cabinet, always a bit of a hypochondriac, my friend, and found an Ambien prescription with 4 left in the bottle. According to the label, this particular helping of sleep medicine had expired in May of 2018, but I thought, what the hell, and took a couple. Maybe they worked. Maybe it was just the placebo effect, but I slept all night and with no dreams. I woke refreshed at 7 the next morning and decided to make my regular walk, feeling I couldn't avoid the spot where Allie died for the rest of my stay. I put on shorts and sneakers and went downstairs to start the Keurig. Greg's driveway opens into a large courtyard on the side of the house. A window at the foot of the stairs looks out on this courtyard. I got 2 steps from the bottom of the stairs and froze, staring. The stroller was out there. I couldn't believe it. Couldn't quite take it in. I felt it had to be a trick of the shadows. Only in that early morning light there were no shadows. Except, that is, for the one thrown by the stroller. It was there. It was real. More than the object itself, the shadow proved it. Shadows don't exist unless there's something to make them. After my initial brain freeze, I was afraid. Someone, some mean person, had come here and left that stroller to freak me out. It worked. I was freaked out. I couldn't think who would have done such a thing. Certainly not Officer Zane or Canavan. Mr. Ito had probably heard of Mrs. Bell's death. News travels fast in small communities, but he wasn't the practical joker type, and his son spent most of the time in internet dreamland. There were no usual suspects, and in a way, that didn't matter. What mattered was that someone had come to my house in what the pulp novelists call the dead of night. Had I locked up? In my initial shock and fright, at first I wasn't even angry. I couldn't remember. I'm not sure I could have remembered my late wife's middle name just then had I been asked. I rushed to the front door. Locked. I went to the one that gave on the pool and the patio. Locked. I went to the back door, which opens into the garage, and that one was locked too. So at least no one had actually been inside doing the midnight creep. It should have been a relief, but it wasn't. One of the cops must have left that thing, I thought. Zane locked the garage and took the keys. There was logic there, but I just didn't believe it. Zane had seemed solid, dependable, far from dumb. Also, was a key to the garage really necessary? Probably not. The lock on the side door looked like the kind you could pop with a coat hanger or a credit card. I went out to look at the stroller. I thought there might be a note of the sort that would be left behind in a creepy grade C suspense movie. "You're next," and "Go back where you came from" both came to mind. There was no note. There was something worse. Yellow shorts on one seat, red shorts on the other. Not the same ones as yesterday. And shirts draped across the backs, also not the same. I didn't want to touch those shirts, and didn't have to in order to read what was on them. Tweedledum and Tweedledee. Twin shirts for sure, but the twins who had worn these were long dead. What to do with the goddamn stroller was the question, and a good one. Now that the reality of it being there was setting in, my first shock, closely followed by fear, was being replaced by curiosity and anger. What a shit way to start the morning. I had my cell phone in the pocket of my shorts. I called the county sheriff's department and asked for Officer P. Zane. The receptionist put me on hold, then came back and said Officer Zane was off duty until the following Monday. I knew better than to ask for a cop's personal number, so instead asked the dispatcher to please tell him Victor Trenton had called and would he please call back. "I'll see what I can do," the woman said, a non-response that did nothing to ameliorate my shitty morning. "You do that," I said, and ended the call. Mr. Ito would also not be in until the following Monday, and I wasn't expecting any other company, but I had no intention of letting that stroller sit in the courtyard. I decided to push it back to Mrs. Bell's and return it to the garage. It was on my usual walk after all, and I might be able to tell if some practical joker mean person had forced the garage door. First, though, I took a couple of photos of the perambulator in situ to show Zane. Assuming he was interested, that was. He might be less than happy that I'd moved the stroller from the courtyard where I found it, but was it evidence of a crime? Had Allie Bell been beaten to death with a perambulator perforce? No, I was just returning it to where we'd put it. I pushed it up the road under the simmering morning sun. Maybe the residual effects of the Ambien were still in my system, because once the fear had been dispelled by the pram's prosaic ordinariness, even the shorts and shirts were prosaic, the sort of clothing available in any Walmart or Amazon. I fell into a kind of daze. I suppose if I'd been in bed, or even lying on the sofa, I would have drifted off into sleep. But because I was walking on Rattlesnake Road, I just let my mind float on its own current. Squeaky wheel, or no squeaky wheel, I really should oil it, I thought. The stroller was easy to push, especially without any 4-year-old boys to weigh it down.